everyone, and welcome to the 5th season of Conversations in the Future of Work. I am your host, Rachel Cossar, co-founder and CEO at Virtual Sapiens, where we use AI to help professionals master communication. I am thrilled to kick off this season with a new and dear friend and business partner and collaborator, Keri-Lynne Shaw, founder and president of The Salary Bump. And this is all going to be about getting in the driver's seat of your career, right? So there's a lot of transformation and transition that happens in one's life, and really being in charge of where you go next in terms of your career is critical. So with that, passing it over to you, Keri-Lynne. Welcome.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
We're thrilled. We're thrilled. So if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit about your background and your focus and your work now.
Sure. So I'm a former CHRO, so I've been around the block when it comes to helping employees inside organizations navigate their career. And I always really had this philosophy in every company that I was in, is that you are responsible to own and drive your future. Obviously, there's support required and leadership support and HR support. But if you don't get into the driver's seat, you will never become what you're truly capable of becoming. And no one is going to care more about you than you. As hard as that is to hear, it's just a reality. Your leader does not have the full capacity. In some cases, some of your leaders might not care. So the sooner you get in the driver's seat, the sooner you are going to live the life that you will be more fulfilling, and the life that you want to live. So coming out of being a CHRO, I decided that there's so much more to this story, and I want to influence people in a different way. So I launched a company called The Salary Bump, and people call me to get unstuck. They call me to help them negotiate their next gig. They call me to get out of bad situations and help them design a roadmap for the life that they really want. So most people that I work with, the most fun, and the people who are most attracted to me are people who are hungry, who are high potential, who want more, and they just don't know exactly how to get there. And this is the most fun I've ever had. It is the best job I've ever had, as scary and as hard as it is to be a business owner. I'm right where I'm supposed to be, and I'm really thrilled to be here. So thanks for having me.
Awesome, KL. Yes. So I'm excited to dive in, because we'll touch on a lot of the work that you're doing with the Salary Bump, but then also some of that, early entrepreneurial journey, right? And the transition from being a CHRO to, running your own company. So excited to dive in. The first question is, of course, you have a diversity of clients, but I'm curious if, there are themes in terms of what you see holding your clients back.
Yeah, there is. So first and foremost, it's self-doubt. And I would say a real fear of failure. I think another big factor with my clients is that they don't actually know what they're even capable of, or what the options even are. As weird as that sounds, most people don't know they can exit with a package if they proactively raise their hand to exit. Most people are shocked, mic drop, when I tell them that when you are exiting an organization, especially in today's environment, you should be saying, hey, I think it's time for me to move on. I know you're in a tough place financially. How about we make this work for both of us? And I raise my hand for a package. It is, I have not had a single client where their company has said no. So there are unknowns. The other big unknown is that people don't realize they can negotiate. They don't realize that they should be in the driver's seat, and they should be having the conversations that matter. But the fact of the matter is, I didn't know I could negotiate for the first 20 years of my career. Honestly, I thought I needed to do good work and the money would come. Or I was in a sales environment. I sold cars to pay for college, and the money that I earned was based on me, how much I sold, the relationships I built. So I walked in thinking that the company, like when I moved into a corporate environment, I had zero clue what that structure was, what that stood for. And I just assumed wow, they made me an offer. Great. I'll take it. I'm excited. I'm hungry. Let's rock and roll. And then every year they gave me more money or they gave me a promotion. And I was like, wow, this is looking really good. I really didn't get it. And then when I did get it, some years in, I realized that, or I was told that women are terrible negotiators. So I had in my head, A, I didn't know I could. B, well, I'm probably bad at it because I'm a woman.
Oh.
And if I did want to try, I was afraid they might see me as greedy, that they might say no or think that it was more about the money than it was about the work. And I am not unique. This is very much every client that I talk to, almost every person that I talk to, every cocktail party I go to, every barbecue I go to. There is a lot of uncertainty, and therefore they choose to back away and not ask, because that's just easier, or they make assumptions that, my company is going to take care of me, and that's just not a reality.
And do you work mostly with women, or are you working with men and women?
I work with both.
Yeah.
A couple, last year I worked with a CEO and an automotive technician and everything in between. Women are more attracted to me somehow. I must be resonating with my content. I'm a big content creator on LinkedIn. So more women seem to come my way, but I am certainly completely inclusive and work with the people who are attracted to me are the ones who are hungry and who want to grow. And so that's men and women.
Have you noticed some of those trends? Like the women you're working with, are they like categorically having a harder time with negotiation than the men, or is it just that negotiation's kind of hard for anyone in that like employed position?
Statistically, less than 50% of people are negotiating. So that's men and women. So there's a large pool of people.
Yeah.
It's just a question of whether you want to ask for help or not, or whether you want to get unstuck. So the women that I work with meet those stats, and the stats for women are less than 30%, and that number is even lower for people of color. So it's really just a question of what do you want to do about it. And everyone that I meet struggles with formulating the story,
Yeah.
and formulating, how do I, first of all, do the market research and make sure that I'm even asking for what I'm worth, or what the market is paying. Most people don't do that. And secondarily, how do I frame it in a way that comes across really genuine, really authentic, and as a win-win? So one of the most important things we do in prepping for a negotiation is creating that win-win environment, because you don't want to walk in guns a-blazing. This is not a win-lose scenario, but most people have been taught, and whether that is through the movies or television, through what we know of attorneys, there's a winner and a loser when it comes to negotiation. And in this case, there is no loser unless there's aggressive or inappropriate behaviors, or you don't want to start your relationship off as the employer or the employee in this ugly fight. You want to start this off as, how do we create a win-win here? You want me, I want you. We're ready to rock and roll and get started. So how do we have this conversation that feels really good for both of us? And I will guide my clients to say that at the beginning of the conversation, and then stop talking and see what the person on the other end says. I will throw in one last really critical, fundamental thing that people need to know, and is one of the reasons, we're talking about fear and self-doubt and the reasons why they don't ask. Everyone on the other end is expecting you to ask. That's critical to know as a CHRO who's made thousands and thousands of offers.
Yeah.
And statistically, I think the number is approximately 90% of the time when you ask, you will get more.
Yeah.
Not to say for sure you're going to get everything you've asked for, but you will get more 90% of the time.
Yeah.
So you've got two big wins. The person's expecting it, and 90% of the time they're going to say yes to something.
Yes.
So what are you waiting for?
Right. Oh man, that's so there's so much in that. Let's dig a little deeper into some of these misconceptions around negotiating, right? So you've mentioned a few of them. how, like there's another one that I've heard around, the person who is going to, or a great way to come away from a negotiation is like knowing what your like lowest offer is, or like what you will say no to, or when you'll walk away. Like, what are your thoughts around that? Is that something that you think is a good strategy, or you think that's kind of missing the point of the fact that this should be like a win-win co-created kind of solution?
Oh gosh, it's such a hard question to answer because we all have a walk away number,
Yeah.
right? But I tend to like to look at it from an abundant mindset versus scarcity mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So that approach is a scarcity mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And an
Yeah.
abundant mindset is looking at what the possibility is.
Right.
So, yes, in the back of your mind, I made $100,000 at my old company. I'm not going to go lower. I'm looking to grow. The number I have in mind, based on my research, is 150. I'd probably accept 140, but I'm going for the 150 because that's like,
Mm-hmm.
so you're going to run that math in your brain.
Yeah.
But actually, I'm going to pivot a little bit to one of the biggest misconceptions that I see most often is people don't think beyond the salary.
Right.
So the misconception is we talk about salary expectations, or we're asked about what are your salary expectations, when the reality is every company has a unique comp philosophy, and every company has a different structure to their total comp package.
Right.
That might include salary, bonus, equity. That might just include salary and bonus. That might include commission. That includes healthcare benefits. That includes potentially professional development. That might include a car. That might include insurance. That might include gas. If you're a CEO, it might include an airplane. If you're not a CEO, it might include your train ticket to work. There are so many levers and elements that make up your total comp package. I'll give you just a quick, it's one of my favorite examples to share. I share it often on podcasts. I worked, as I told you, with an automotive technician. This was an hourly worker who had received a master technician certification and wanted to get more money per hour. What we walked away with was a 40% total comp increase. And that was a few more bucks an hour. That was a car, insurance, and gas,
Yeah.
which was out of pocket about $1,500 a month with his car payment, his insurance,
Yeah.
and his gas. That after tax money he gets to put back in his pocket.
Ding, 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 ding.
And invest, right? We got a few bucks more an hour, and we co-created a beautiful bonus program that was that he got paid more as he delivered more. Mm-hmm. So he was hungry. He was ready to go after it. So there was no loss for the company. They were like, how can we lose? The guy's going to produce more. Right. We're going to make more. And then we give him a piece of that. It was such a no-brainer. And this cherry on top, we got him and his wife's healthcare covered.
Yeah.
Another $1,000 a month out of pocket he was paying. So not only did we get more money hourly, more money in his bonus structure, we got more money here. So it is a big misconception because people just get blocked by what's coming in every month. They don't realize that there's so much more beyond that picture and so many levers to pull. And that's where the real fun happens. And even if you get what you want salary-wise, you get the 150, we're still asking for the other stuff because that's part of building this beautiful package.
Right. I'm so glad you brought that up, because there's also the education that we have around that, like taxable income versus like using either post-tax or, pre-tax essentially dollars and lowering your taxable, like that's a real financial strategy, and absolutely that's something that I think people can easily lose sight of.
Yeah. And there's tuition reimbursement there. Yeah. I mean, I remember back in my early days when I first moved into corporate, they paid for my undergrad. They paid for my graduate degree.
Yeah.
There's even tuition reimbursement like after the fact that will pay off student loans. There's childcare. There's all these elements that one of the first things we do when I work with a client is we get grounded to what matters to you.
Yeah.
Like what are what are your values? For some people, it's not the money, it's the time off or a flexible work schedule. I always make sure we get both, because you shouldn't be sacrificing the money for a flexible work schedule. You can have both.
Yes.
But there are cases where, use the 100 to 150 example, they didn't quite meet us at 150. They met us at 140, but we negotiated a flexible work schedule that also really, really mattered. So maybe the other offer you have on the table at 150 with 5 days a week in office, and the one at 140 only made you to go in once or twice a week. That one is a little sweeter. And so, we might sacrifice certain things for those things that really matter.
Right. And do you generally advise people to go in with a much higher either number of requests, like knowing that some of them are going to be taken off the table, or like a much higher number knowing that like it'll probably be lower? Like if someone is happy at 150, would you say like, okay, well then let's go in and ask for 165?
So first and foremost, I don't ever guide anyone to answer that question first. You always want to get grounded to what the comp philosophy is inside the organization and what range they've budgeted for.
Yeah.
So if they ask you that question, that is a response. Well, given the fact that every company that I'm talking to has a different comp philosophy, it'd be helpful if you could get me grounded to what your philosophy is and what you've budgeted for this role.
Yeah.
That is your answer. If you're backed into a corner, and by the way, when you're doing your research, or when I'm doing the research for you, we're only talking in ranges. We will never talk in pure numbers. So, and it's important that you talk in ranges, because you don't want to back yourself into a corner. So the range, let's say the range of the role is 140 to 175, and you'd be happy at 150, but let's say that's the range. And if you have to answer that question, you say the range that I've done my homework on in the market is 140 to 175. But I'd love to know further what your comp philosophy is and what your total comp picture looks like.
Yeah.
And then another secret question that I love to guide people to ask is, when you're having that conversation, you could also say, well, what does a candidate at 175 look like for you? When they say the top end of their range, ask that question, because then your answers throughout the rest of that interview will all come back to that person who's going at the 175. Well, I'm going to show them. And then when you get to the negotiation, well, when we first spoke, you gave me the indicator of the person at the high end. Ding, ding, ding. These are the reasons why I believe I should be there.
Right. The other thing, because that question around budget range, I always, even within my seat as the CEO and business development lead for Virtual Sapiens, when we get to the budget talks and they're like, well, how much does this cost? If we're talking about a specific project, I do always ask, like, what kind of budget range have you put aside for this kind of work or this budget or this project? And on so many occasions, they've quoted me so much higher than I would have expected. And I'm like, oh my God.
Thank goodness you didn't talk first.
Seriously. Yeah. I mean, I think that's like, you always leave the room to be positively surprised, right?
Yes. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that, because it does also apply to business owners.
Yes.
Right. Totally. Like, what feels good for you? And even, like, this feels good for me. Well, here's what we normally work with, but let's talk about it. Let's talk how we can close that gap, because if you feel also an energy match. So let's say you and I thought we might work together, and your normal per hour rate is 500 an hour. And I put on the table that, I can afford 300. I'm like, and you feel like Kale is the kind of person I want to work with. Her energy vibes. I think she's great from a partner perspective. I think that her network would be really helpful. Like, you're thinking bigger picture. You're not just like $500. I'm not going down to 300.
Yeah.
You're going to vibe. And if you don't, you're going to say, unfortunately, I can't meet you there. But if there's a vibe, you are going to try to say, Kale, there's something about this energy that I really feel. I hope you feel it too. It seems like you do. Normally I charge 500. How can we close that gap? And I might say, you know what, Rachel, I can go up to 400, and maybe I can pay you that extra 100 on the back end after I land certain deals. Or
Right.
that's beautiful, genuine, authentic, real, vulnerable negotiation.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. It's like, I really hope people are taking notes, because this is just gold, So changing tracks a little, right? You've mentioned so much of the abundantly human parts of your work and coaching. So how do you see AI coming into the career development space, in a positive way, but also maybe in a not so positive way?
Well, I only see there's great benefits from utilizing AI tools. And I think the biggest thing that I think people can benefit from is using AI for the things that they don't love doing, for the things that AI is better at doing, for formulating your words. I'm married to a German, and English is not his first language. If he's not using AI on a regular basis to formulate his emails, and he is painstaking time that he wastes in going, not wastes, I mean this in the nicest of ways, but AI is so helpful to formulate. English is my first language, and I do the same thing over emails. Is that saying right? Like, use AI for the things that are going to help you get better, so that you can spend your energy on the things that you're really good at,
Mm-hmm.
the things that you love, and the things that are making a bigger impact on the world. You have to prioritize your time and your energy. And so utilizing AI to help you grow, whether that be feeding it information, like, I want to grow my career, I feel stuck. How can I do that? Can you give me some tips? Like, there are a million ways that you can use AI. And, I would, if you're okay with it, to share why I, as a business owner, am partnering with Virtual Sapiens.
Yeah, of course.
So everything I do is bespoke. Everything I do, besides my digital program that I created. So there are people who want to go that route, and that's perfect. But with my one-on-one, what I find is I'm prepping people for the interview of their dreams. And I can only do so much.
Yeah.
I can give them feedback on how they're showing up with me. I can give them feedback on how they're answering certain questions. But what the tool, I only have so much time to give. And my time is to my clients first and foremost. There's also a pipelining element of what I do. So in order for me to have time to do all of that and grow my business, I need to be smart about the portions that I can have tools like AI, like yours, help me with. And that is prepping for that interview. How are you showing up virtually? How often are you using likes? How often are you using ums? What's the tone? What's the lighting? What's the speed? How are you speaking? You are on screen so much of your time, even beyond the interview, that utilizing this tool just made so much sense for me.
Yeah.
And it then allows me the space and the time and the energy to work on the things that really matter and are driving my business forward. And quite honestly, your tool does a much better job than I would do in giving feedback. And then I can use the results of that to give my clients feedback, because we can go through the video.
Right.
So that's just an example, but I think there are so many beautiful benefits of it. Will it ever replace human connection? I can't imagine that it ever replaces human connection, because there is energy
Yeah.
that you feel. And who knows, I can't predict the future, but use it for what works for you, to help empower your conversations, to help frame your conversations, to help articulate your words. But it won't replace connection, in my opinion.
Yes, no, Kale, I agree. I love what you said about leveraging AI to do the things that AI is distinctly designed and able to do very well. And then hopefully also that correlates with some of the things that you just don't want to spend your time doing, or that you can't spend your time doing, or that you're not as skilled in,
Yeah.
right? It's really amazing for partners such as yourselves, your expertise is so deep in the career and negotiation and all those spaces and mindset. And then our AI goes really deep into the communication behaviors and the science behind that. And so it's wonderful because communication is clearly also such a critical part of the work that you do, that you can have this tool that your clients can use in their own time.
Yes,
Right?
but it's a sales tool. Think about salespeople. Think about, how many crappy sales pitches I get on LinkedIn every day.
Yeah.
Where people come, see, that's an AI generated outreach where they just slap, something it comes across really gross. And if it came across, let's say it wasn't gross and I said yes to it, your tool would help them to show up as a different salesperson because they know and how they're showing up on camera and how to fine tune things. So this isn't about your tool. It's just an example, and it's obvious because it's right in front of me. I think there's so many wonderful ways that we can just keep honing our craft.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Kale. I certainly appreciate it. And I think our audience will find it interesting. So before we wrap up, the time has flown by. I would love to hear, switching tracks again now to your experience as a business owner now in your own right. Like, what has been your biggest challenge?
Oh gosh, I have to pick one.
I know, right? I was on a podcast earlier today. I was asked the same question and I was like, okay.
It's a really unfair question. It's a very, very hard question to answer. I'm a risk taker. I always have been. I was considered in my career high potential, go getter, go after it. So my ideal client is sort of a younger version of me, just like that bright eyed, go for it. Don't know how I'm going to get there. We'll break some rules, probably won't break a lot of glass, but we'll navigate. Saying yes and going all in on me and leaving a very comfortable salary as a CHRO was probably the biggest fear.
Yeah.
And to overcome that, I think I know how I'm going to answer this. Redefining what success looks like for me. Because I spent my entire career in a corporate setting where my success was defined on my salary and my title. And I made it to the C-suite, and that felt really good. And the salary was there, and the bonuses were there, and the equity was there. To now say I'm going all in on me was quite possibly it's the second scariest thing I've ever done in my life. And I was sort of tiptoeing, knowing that I was going to go all in, but how much time am I going to give this? Is this going to be a viable business? What am I investing in? What am I spending money on before I'm actually having money coming in? These are scary things. I went all in. I hired 4 coaches. For all different reasons, that was the best investment I could have possibly given. I hired a marketing firm. I had no business spending $4,000 a month on marketing. None, 0. And the old Kale would have backed off and waited, tiptoed till the money came in. So I started a little bit with the tiptoeing, and I was like, this isn't working. And it was my husband that really pushed me to say, you're going all in. If this is going to be about, you go all in. And he pushed me to do that. And I'm so, so glad I did. Looking back now, it hasn't even been 1 full year. It was a profitable year. It was a year of incredible growth. I don't think I've grown this much in the last 10 years combined. And I'm a learner. I want to always grow. But betting on me, I would say, was the oh shit moment of for sure of my career. And as I said, looking back, I'm so glad I did it. It really worked, but it could have not. I might not be sitting in front of you here today. And I just think that believing in myself, and I do think for some people doing it on the side before they go all in, is probably a safer bet. If I had been smart, I probably would have done that. But I love a good challenge. I think there were moments where I definitely doubted myself, and having the coaches on, my business coach, my professional coach, my trauma coach, my hormone coach, like all the things that I needed. I had a team of people that were rooting for me, that were helping me with my daily tasks and marching orders and the things I needed to do to be successful. I had the person getting me out of my head.
Yeah.
So I think those were the 4 best gifts that I gave myself. And I think I don't know that I would have, I don't know if I would have navigated it. And certainly not as fast.
Yeah.
And I might have given up, because then the money, the profit, I might have said, oh, this isn't as viable. So yeah, is that a weird answer to your question? Because it was a lot. It was a lot to overcome.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, I know, like, even just with myself and having made the leap from a nice, cushy, high-paying job to founding Virtual Sapiens, like during the pandemic. Oh my God. But there's, I don't know, at least for me, there was this feeling of, with this like inner knowledge of like the time is now to take this leap. And if I don't do this, I will definitely regret it. And I will always wonder, like, why did I hold myself back, for the safer play?
Yeah. And, look, this question can be for anyone, a business owner, someone who's looking to take a leap from their, comfortable, safe job. But no, they want more in their career. Like, there's going to be lots of challenges. And usually the biggest challenge is yourself.
Yeah.
And getting out of your head.
Yeah.
Getting out of your own way. And that's why I think it just pays to have someone in your corner. I hope you had someone when you were launching your company. It was a good gift to give myself. Thank you to my husband, Reiner.
Yes, I know. That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. So, KL, we're at the end of the show now. And honestly, that was such a valuable and insightful conversation. So thank you so much. If there's anything else you wanted to share with our audience, and importantly, how can our audience connect with you directly?
Oh gosh, thank you. Well, the very best place that you can connect with me is on LinkedIn. Keri-Lynne Shaw. I post almost every day. I'm very, very active, very vocal, a lot of thought leadership. I share a lot of secrets that help you. So a lot of free secrets. But I meet about 20 new people a week for coffee virtually, 30 minutes, and just learn about them. And if there's ever anything I can do to help, that's a totally free call. But yeah, check me out on LinkedIn, and then thesalary.bump.com is where you can find what it would look like to actually work with me. You can find my digital program there and my one-on-one stuff.
Awesome. Great. We'll include that in our posting as well. And thank you so much, KL. And as always, thanks to our audience for joining. See you next time.
Thanks for having me.